This morning, I am going to talk a bit about attaching flowers to cakes, a few tips that I've picked up over the years, which might be useful. So I'm going to talk about sugar flowers, but I'm also going to talk about fresh flowers as well, because they're slightly different, very similar, but slightly different. Right, let's just say, if you're here, do say hello. If not, I'll talk to myself. You know, I don't mind. I'm used to talking to myself. I do it all the time. I'll talk through some of the bits and bobs that you need to attach your flowers to your cakes, and a few other ways of doing it, like this one here. I'll show you how this one here is done as well. So I'm in my office today, so I haven't got a great deal of room, so it's a little bit squished. Okay, so I've got, I don't know if you can see here, I've got this cake here, which actually has got this around this side. It is a bit of a dog's dinner because I don't know if you can see all that. No, you probably can't. But I've used this dummy for lots of different arrangements, and so it's sort of a bit mashed up onto there. But that one looks okay on my shelf, so I've left that. But I'm going to turn it around and put some stuff on the back for you. But just ignore all the mashed up bits, because say this is a dummy cake that's been kicking around for a bit, and so has had a bit of battering. All right, so attaching flowers to cakes. So I have got, these here that I'm going to put on this dummy here. Okay, I will move it and close it up so you can see it a bit more better. So these are going to go onto here for you. So this one I've actually not prepared yet, which is probably just as well. So this flower here is actually done not brilliantly well underneath there. I should have done it on thicker wires. But basically, when you do your sugar flower, you do need to tape it, which most of you would do anyway if you're doing sugar flowers. That's sort of a standard thing, isn't it? So I'm just going to tape this. Oh, tape it and stretch it. And actually, if you're using fresh flowers, it's a good idea to do this with fresh flowers as well, to tape the stems, just to give that extra layer of protection. But I'll talk to you about things you need to do with fresh flowers in a minute. So I'm going to tape this up. Oh, blimey, it's falling to bits. La, 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 la. If you're not used to using florist tape, you have to stretch it. It took me years to work that out. That you have to stretch it to release the glue. Honestly, it took me ages to work that out. Okay, and I'm going to just get rid of that bit that's sticking up there, because I won't need that with my lovely flamingo scissors. I have actually got proper wire cutters downstairs, which I should use, but they're downstairs, so I'm not going to. Okay, so we've taped the flower. Now, if it's a dummy cake, you could just shove it in, which is what I've done with these. Unless it's a competition. If it's Cake International, you mustn't do that. They want to see the pics. And there are two ways of attaching it, or two things you can use. The first one is a flower pick. These come in different sizes. I don't know what the size these are. Medium. These are medium. You can get really walloping ones, and you get tiny ones as well. But I must admit, most of the time I use these jumbo straws, because they're much more adaptable and flexible. Hi, Amber. They're much more adaptable and flexible, and you can put more in because they're wider, thicker. Okay. And it's also useful to have, I have some here already, some spare sugar paste, which you're going to use to put inside the pick or the straw to keep the flour from wobbling about. Huggy duggy. So what I would generally do is I would work out where I want that. I'll bring that down a bit so you can see a bit better. So let's say I want the flower sort of in the middle there. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to have to dig away at this because this is really hard dummy. Obviously, for a fresh cake that you've just made, it'll push in really easily. You don't need to worry about that. But I might need to hack this about a bit to get it in. But what I would do is I would put it in the straw to see how far down it comes. Cut off what I don't need. I might make that. No, I won't make it shorter. To leave a little bit at the end. And the reason I've not cut it off is because it's a fairly heavy flower. If you've got a shorter stem, it's more likely that the weight of the head will pull it out. If you've got a heavy head flower, you want a little bit more of a root in the cake to keep it secure. Okay, now you can see that that's wobbling about a bit. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add the leaves, the foliage to this and put them all in the same doodah. Okay, straw is the word I'm looking for. So I'm just going to place my foliage. Hang on. So it's sort of a nice arrangement. Obviously, you need to, if you've got all your flowers, have some kind of a, a plan, put them together, lay them out on the table, that kind of thing. So you know roughly what's going where. Don't do what I used to do, was just sort of shove them in and hope for the best. That's not a good plan. That's not a good plan. So let's say, and bear in mind that, that's the wrong way around. Hang on. Starting it. Have your flowers the right way around. Yeah, bear in mind that you want it to be, it needs to be seen sort of from above as well as from the front and all that kind of stuff. So I'll probably do that. Yeah, possibly have one up and one down a little bit. That's a bit more. You can play around with them once you've got them in there. So what I'm going to do, you can see I've got the foliage wires here, which are a lot longer than those. I'm going to cut those off to match. Ooh, or flamingo. It doesn't like doing thick wires. And then I'm going to tape all those together. I'll give you an alternative method in a second, but I'll just finish this first. So this is good if you want, if you know that you've got the flowers that go together in a spray and you can put them all together, tape them all up. I'll tell you what I'm talking about in a second once I've finished doing this. Ooh. So we're going to tape it all up. So now we have that all attached together. And then we've still only got one point of entry on the cake. We haven't got lots of different divots in it. Because obviously the more you put in the cake, the weaker the cake structure is going to be. So you have to be careful not to overload it. So that will then go in there. Now we don't want it wobbling about. So I'm going to put, tiny bit of sugar paste in there. And then hopefully this should work. You can sort of squeeze the flour into the sugar paste. You might need a bit more, but we'll leave it there for now. So you get the idea. You just put the sugar paste in and it holds it more stable. Okay. Then what I usually do, what I would normally do is just push it slightly in, but with it at an angle. I wouldn't necessarily do it dead upright, but at a slight angle. And then the rose, particularly if it's a big flower, you want it sort of sitting between the tiers. Does that make sense? If you have it completely upright, it's just going to face up. You want it facing out as much as you can. So it's going to be there. Right, this is where I need to pick away at my dummy. Let's just hope I don't end up in an A&E, shall we? Oh, it's not too bad, actually. There we go. Obviously, for real cake, you wouldn't do this bit. You would just press it firmly in. Ooh. Oh, flamingo. Ooh. Then you like that will now work. Work. Yeah. There we go. And then generally what I do, I don't know if you can see how I'm doing this. Can you see? There's the thing there. What I would do is I would use scissors to carefully push it down even further. Oh. Actually not deep enough. In a real cake, that would push right down. But because I haven't put the hole deep enough, it's sitting a little bit on top, but you get the idea. So that's how we would do that. And then you can very carefully, arrange your leaves and that kind of thing. I hope that makes sense. Oh, hello, everybody. Hello, Claire. Hello, Sarah Jane. Nice to see you. Okay, so that is with one of those. You could use one of those. But for this one, you probably need a bigger one because, as I said, you need the root of the sugar flower to go fairly deep. Otherwise, it's going to fall out. Okay. Now, the other ways of doing it are, one, if you've got lots of small flowers, particularly small roses. I've done quite a few flowers. I've done quite a few flowers where I've had rosebuds swirling around. And what I've actually done is I've done them on cocktail sticks, which are food safe. So with those, if you do your flowers or roses on those, so instead of a wire, you put the initial bud on a cocktail stick, whole load of those on cocktail sticks, you can just put them straight into the cake. You haven't got to faff about with tape and flower picks and that kind of thing. So that's one option. I've done that before, say with swirls, because it's just a quick way of doing it. You can just place them in then. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is there is something called edible seal. It's a wax, but I don't think it's available anymore because it's not thought to be food safe after all, because the bits of the wax get in the cake. But an alternative to that would be to dip your flowers. I wouldn't do this with fresh flowers. I'd do this with sugar flowers, is to dip them in melted chocolate. If you dip them in melted chocolate, that then will provide a seal around the cake, which would be food safe. You can then place them straight into the cake. So that's an alternative way of doing it. Okay. It really, the way that I choose would really depend on what kind of flowers I have, the size of the flowers, the weight of the flowers, that kind of thing. But it might be, if I had lots of little bits of foliage here on this one, extra bits, I might dip those in chocolate and then you can just push them in. You haven't got to, say, faff about with straws and there's no straws in the way and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's an alternative. And then the other way of doing it, hang on, let's just move this over. Oh, blimey. Is to use a ring. I saw Suzanne Esper doing this at Cake International. And I thought, what a blooming marvellous idea. So what you've basically got here, you can see you've got your ring, and I've got, it came in a pack, this one. You get them from Amazon. You look for dream catcher rings, and you get all sorts of different sizes. This one, just to give you a bit of context of size, hang on, let me tell you sizes are, because that's usually useful, isn't it? What size is this cake? That is, that is a 9-inch tier, that one. That one is a 7-inch tier. And this ring is 8 inches, just to give you some space, size context. So this hoop here is 1 inch smaller than that tier there. That makes sense. So the idea is, and this would work with fresh flowers, is that you attach, I don't know if you can see that? You attach the flowers actually to the ring, and then it's the ring that you attach to the cake. And the way that you attach them, this is genius. I was blown away when I saw this, is you use cable ties. It's so simple. It's a, why didn't I think of that? I don't know if you can see it. If I move it closer, can you see that I've got the cable ties in there where I've attached the flowers to the ring? Okay. And then the ring, I'm just going to move that because that got put in as an afterthought because I had a red smudge there. But the actual ring is attached in a posy pick down there. So I've got wire around the ring, and then the wire is poked into the posy pick. And then I've got another one here. I didn't put a posy pick because this is a dummy cake. If it was a real cake, again, you'd put a posy pick in there. So I've attached the ring at 2 points. Okay. And the flowers are attached with cable ties to the ring. I hope you can see that. But actually it gives quite a lovely effect, with the advantage, of course, that if it's a wedding cake particularly, the couple can have the ring removed and they can just keep that ring as a display. Yes, I'm just going to pop this back because it's hide that red mark. There we go. Oh, that's not quite right, is it? Never mind. I'll play with that later. Something like that. There we go. So that is another way of doing it, which is actually quite effective, and they're quite popular at the moment, those rings. And I think you can get them in, you know, you can get wooden ones if you want a bit more rustic, that kind of thing. So that's that. Let's just put you there for a minute. Oh, righty-ho. Oh, hang on. I'll clear the decks a bit now. Because we're going to talk about fresh flowers for a little bit. Just put me tape away. So for fresh flowers, in a way, they're very similar to the sugar ones in that you cut the stem to size, you tape the stem, you would then insert into a straw or a posy pick using the sugar paste, those kind of things. And you could even, you know, put them on a ring. That would look beautiful. But the thing to remember with fresh flowers is you need to, I never supply the flowers myself. I always say to the couple, ask your florist if they can provide some, mainly because I don't know anything about flowers. It's a real faff and they'd end up not matching. And the florist can just go, oh yeah, here's a couple of extra roses, is easy. I always say to the couple, I will talk to the florist first. So I liaise with the florist, mainly to talk about ones that are poisonous. Because in my experience, florists, not that they aren't that bothered about it, but it's not on their priority list, put it that way. Whether a flower is toxic is not on the top of their priority list. And I've had one or two get a little bit shirty when I've said, I'm sorry, I'm not putting that in my cake. I think it was the old gypsophilia. And the florist said, oh no, it's fine, loads of people do it, kind of a bit shirty. I interpreted it as a bit shirty, whether it was or not, I don't know. But I went back to the bride and said, she suggested gypsophilia because you've asked for it, but it's actually toxic. And the bride went, oh no, I don't want that then, don't put that on it. So, talk to both. But what I was going to show you was a really brilliant website. Hang on, let's find it. Where is it? Here it is. Let me share my screen, and I'll show you, because this is brilliant, this website. I found this a while back. Can you see this? It's a blog, Love from Lila. I'll put the link to it in the description of this live, so hopefully you can see it. But the top bit of the blog is lots of, talking about it and yada, yada, yada. Brilliant, lovely. But it's the bottom of it that's really, really useful for us, because what she does is she lists edible varieties, so flowers that are actually edible. So all these, okay. Dahlia, I didn't know dahlias were edible, cornflowers are. I knew that lavender was. Gladioli, I didn't know gladioli were edible. If you had a really big cake, you might shove some gladioli. Was it Edna Everidge, wasn't it? Used to wander around with gladioli. So those are all actually edible, and foliage as well. Then the next section here is ones that they're not edible, but they're non-toxic. They're contact safe. You can put them on the cake. So that's all these ones here. Gerbera, lilac, magnolia, peony, stocks, all those ones there. Hosta. Those are the big leaves, aren't they? Hosta. Now, and then when we get to the bottom, we get the toxic, the dangerous ones that should be actively avoided. And this is where you get your gypsophilia and some other ones. I didn't know heather was toxic. Who knew? Clematis, cherry blossom is toxic. Ones that you'd think weren't, but are, because cherries, you think of cherries, don't you? Cherry blossom. So here we have, and then foliage, eucalyptus, shouldn't go on it, holly, berries, ivy. Now I knew mistletoe was, but mistletoe as well. So that is a really, really useful website. So if you then talk to the florist before the wedding, you can then go here and say, right, is it safe? Is it going to be okay? Because obviously you can't put anything on the cake, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. I mean, there is I think someone put in the group a while back about the bride wants to put her own flowers in. I mean, all you can do is give them this list. Well, first of all, I'd say, I'll do it for you. Let me do it for you, because I know how to do it safely. But if they insist, they say, no, just leave the cake, I'll do it. You give them this list. After you've left the cake, there's not a lot you can do. You can't sit there and guard over it, shooing people away. So you just do all you can to make sure it's safe, and take a photo of it as you leave it, so that you have proof of the fact that you didn't put any flowers on, that kind of thing. So that is that website, which is really, really useful. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention, I've seen a couple of people in different groups give advice about wrapping sugar and fresh flowers, and saying to wrap them in cling film. I really, really wouldn't do that, mainly because if you wrap in cling film and somehow some of the cling film comes off into the sponge and someone eats it, inhales it, you'd have all sorts of problems on your hands. You could do someone some real damage. You could have, a small child choking on it, that kind of thing. So I really would not recommend wrapping flowers, stems in cling film at all. Don't go near that. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. That is. But hopefully I've given you a few ideas as to how you can get those flowers on the cake. So you've got your straws, you've got your posy picks, you've got something, you know, a bit more of a feature. You've got the hoop, dipping them in chocolate, making them with cocktail sticks so you can put them directly in. All those are really good ways of getting those flowers on the cake. So I hope, oh good, Claire, I'm glad that's handy. I hope that's been of some use to you. As I said, with a dummy cake is a lot harder because you're dealing with the actual dummy. When you come to putting cakes in a real cake, flowers in a real cake, they do slide in really easily. The other thing I would say is don't, and this is a bit stating the obvious, but I'll state it anyway, because, you know, when you're busy and you're whatever, it might not occur to you. But when you put it in the cake, don't ever put it so that the straw or the flower pick is going up and the flower is facing down, because gravity will take over and it will fall out. Always have, and that is stating the obvious a little bit, isn't it? I apologize, but it needed to be said, really. But put your straw in vertical or at an angle going up, and then just angle your flowers down. Particularly if they're wire, you can angle them down, can't you? There. In fact, I might well have tried to put in flowers that way before and then had them fall out. So there we go. I hope that's been useful. If you need any more help in the group, just ask if I can, you know, give any more hints or tips or whatever it is. I'm more than happy to help. And happy flower attaching. Hopefully the link to that website is there somewhere. If not, I'll put it back in there for you, because that is a brilliant website for toxic and edible flowers. It's my go-to when I talk to florists. So there we go. Next week we've got my masterclass, which is by Zoom. You need to sign up to get the Zoom link for that one. It's in the group somewhere, but I'll put it up again. And that's my Secrets of a Successful Baking Business masterclass, which is relevant to obviously wedding cake businesses as well. So do come along to that. I would love to see you there. And then following that, I think I've put in a session about finances for the new financial year, just an overview of how the tax thing works. Because I was a bookkeeper, so I know, you know, I can help you with the basics for that. And then what was the other thing I was going to do? Oh yes, someone asked to do sharp buttercream. Now I'm doing a buttercream cake in a couple of weeks, so what I will do is I will record what I do with that. So I won't do a live like I did last time. I can't do it live because I don't know when it is I'm going to be doing it, but I'll record it and show you how I make sharp edges on my buttercream, and I'll pop that as a video in the group for you. All right, okie dokie. Have a lovely Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. I don't even know what day it is. Oh, Lordy. Have a lovely Easter weekend, everybody. If you're working, go for it. Have a good one. If you're not, then have a beautiful Easter with lots of chocolate and bunnies and all that kind of stuff. Lots of hot cross buns. And have a lovely rest, and I will see you next time. All right, take care. Bye.